Yamhill Leadership Roundtable for Friday. And I'll do introductions first. We've got Mayor Beth Wytoski of Dayton. We've got I'm Casey Cooley. We've got Commissioner Rick Olson. We got Mayor Michael Cate from Amity. We have Jody Christensen from Regional Solutions. Special guest today. Also, I'll get to the other special guest in a minute. We got Shannon Buckmaster from Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce. We've got Mayor Cooley from the city of Sheridan. And we have Denise Harvey, Tribal Council member from Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. Welcome. And we have Mayor Sproul, and we have Lafayette, and we have Commissioner Mary Starrett is our phone. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. What I'd like to start with, since oh yes,
Commissioner Cooley, did you want to record this session?
Yes. Typically, I'm not the one who does the recording, though. So, but would you like to?
Before we get further along and have relevant information, that's it.
Totally. Would you like? Let me check though. Usually, McMinnville Community Media is.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think Phil or whomever is on there should be recording.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you though for mentioning that. Okay, and we've got Abisha Stone from SEDCOR, our local economic development contractor, and all around awesome person who I give too much work to, even though I'm not her liaison. But let's start with the big news, which is that Yamhill County was approved to enter phase 1 as of today, which you all know because many of you were involved in that decision or the application process. But what I'd love to do first of all is ask Jody Christensen to say anything to the community she would like to say, but then open it up for questions for Jody. Jody, welcome.
Thank you. I know that this has been a long-awaited day and process that Yamhill County is entering into. I would just like to share that we at the governor's office and Oregon Health Authority want to support the best possible path forward for Yamhill County as you go through this, in supporting your businesses, your public health, and of course all of you who are representing your communities and your cities. So I would just really put a shout out to Oregon Health Authority's website. We have all of the guidelines have been on the web, are now on the website, translated in 8 languages. There are printable signage available as well, and we just really want to make sure that that's a good place that people go to for information and questions about the nuances of the guidelines or determining how the guidelines fit within their business. So that is really the first point of contact. The second point of contact for you is the Business Navigator, and that is a live call-in resource through Business Oregon. I'll give you the website. It's www.oregon4biz.com, and the 4 is the number 4, not spelled out. Oregon4biz, biz.com. And on that landing page, you'll be able to navigate to the Business Navigator information. Those people who are staffing that line will be able to take questions about the guidance, about the reopening process, and if they don't have an answer for you right then and there, they'll make sure that you get an answer. The other thing that they're doing, which will be new today, is that there's over $90 billion left in the payroll protection program. $90 billion. So the staff on the Business Navigator live line will be able to direct businesses or any of you to banks that are now working with businesses, helping them through the application of the payroll protection program, which is a forgivable loan. And again, there's $90 billion. We vetted a list of banks that are still accepting and working with businesses on that application. So that's a really important process that started today. And I think that's all I have for updates, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Great. Questions for Jody? Shannon Buckmaster, you had a series of questions. Do you want to ask any of those of Jody?
Thank you, Commissioner Cooler. Actually, I'll have to review, but I think we've gotten some really great answers ahead of the panel. So I'll double check and then I'll circle back. And I know that Jody has limited time, so thank you.
All right, other questions for Jody?
Yes, Commissioner Cool, I had a question for
Perfect.
Jody. This is Mary Starrett. And I had a constituent asking about reopening of bowling establishments. And on the call today, Leah said they were trying to work on it and didn't really know how they were going to classify that type of business. Do you have any insights on that?
So we have been getting a number of inquiries about bowling alleys, and Leah was correct. We are having a number of conversations within our office. One of the things that has been really helpful is if business owners, like in a bowling alley, have an association that they belong to, or if they've crafted sort of a draft set of guidelines that they would like to, that they see themselves working under, if they could provide that to me, I then share that within our office, and it's been extremely helpful. Early on, Joya provided me some guidance on, I think it was nail salons or hair salons from an association, a national association, and I shared that with our public health policy advisor, and she use that as a foundational document to move forward in crafting some guidelines for the draft. So this is a very engaged process. We want to make sure that industry is involved and businesses are involved in these guidelines, because we need their insights and perspective as we're developing these with the Oregon Health Authority. So they're the health side of it. We want to make sure that we understand the nuances of businesses. So I highly encourage people to share information with me. Again, my email address is jody.christensen, CHRISTENSEN at oregon.gov, and I can share what information forward with our team.
Thank you.
Great, and Joya Goodrum has a question for you, Jody.
Hey, Jody. So I'm getting a lot of questions from our businesses that have office space. So for example, insurance companies. And they are not sure how to move forward. They've been open through this whole period, and yet they're not sure how to bring their staff back. And I've sent them the general employer guidelines, but is there going to be a guideline for offices or office buildings, or something more detailed on how to bring your staff back?
So there will not be specific guidelines to private business. We are developing guidelines for government, particularly agencies, on how to bring people back. In phase one, there's still the telework where possible. And so if your businesses have been working under that, they should continue that during phase one. And I would say what we're calling kind of pre-phased or current conditions before phase one, that using the employer guidelines gives them that extra guidelines from the Oregon Health Authority, the public health agencies, to make sure that they're covering all their bases. So I would say you're still in telecommute where possible.
All right, thank you very much, Jody. I think there's also, people would appreciate some clarification around mask usage. Would you be able to do that?
So there's some additional guidance coming out today around masks. So what I've asked from our office is to define what we mean by face covering. So there will be some additional information. I'll make sure I get that out to all of you. But it is encouraged that the public wear a face covering, and there will be additional guidance coming out today, and I will share that with the group. As you know, some of the sector guidelines require face coverings as well. For example, in a restaurant setting, an employee is required to wear a face mask. And while on the surface that may seem like, well, that's just part of a uniform, but imagine the employee who spends 8 hours serving people, the exposure that they've had, and also how many people they've come in contact with. So this is a really smart way to make sure that the employee is safe during their shift, and making sure that the people that they're coming in contact with, and that on both sides, that there's that additional protection. So you will see in the some of the guidance that a face covering is a required component of the guidelines. So I'll make sure, Commissioner, that we get the new guidance around face coverings out to everyone.
Thank you. It looks like Commissioner Olson has a question for you, Jody.
Yeah, Jody, how are you doing this Friday? Hey, the question I have for you is, I've had several of our restaurants in McMinnville ask this question, is that if they, instead of tables, if they use booths, sometimes they have to like use one, mark off the next two, use one to get that 6 feet, that 6 foot clearance zone. Has any thought been given to restaurants, the guidelines for restaurants, that if they have booths and not tables, about putting plexiglass panels between the booths to actually segregate the booths so they're not wide open?
So that was a discussion that we had yesterday, and it is 6 feet of distance, not height. So we want to make sure that we understand it's the distance between people, not the distance up. So they would have to have 6 feet between people.
Because I think that will keep some of the restaurants who actually specifically have booth seating, not table seating, it'll keep them closed. There's one small restaurant here in McMinnville that has 8 booths, and because of the 6 foot setting, they will only be able to use 3 of them. And I'm not necessarily concerned with the height of the plexiglass, but providing that border between each booth. So it's not necessarily how high it is, it's providing a barrier between each booth. If that will, like they're doing in a lot of the major stores, if that could substitute for the 6 feet.
My understanding is that it cannot be a substitution for the 6 feet, but I will get clarification for you, Commissioner.
Okay, thanks, Jody.
Thank you very much, Jody. And Commissioner Olson, any other questions? All right, great. Thank you very much, Jody, for joining us to give us a big overview of constantly emerging and changing environment. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for all of your flexibility. And lots of other people say thank you, Jody, too. But Jody and I have this routine where at the end of our economic response team meeting, right when she ends the meeting, I unmute myself to say thank you, Jody. So thank you, Jody. Okay, great. What I would like to do is go on to Fritz Graham, who's the representative of U.S. Senator Ron Wyden, for a federal update. Fritz, are you ready to tell the community and the people on the call about what's happening in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I am. Although I'm not. Yes, I am. So the House introduced CV4 COVID-4 stimulus package, and they were going to vote on it today, and I don't know if they've done that yet. It's a massive package. It covers everything. I remember at the beginning it was going to be infrastructure, but it's trying to fill all of the gaps. And what's in it is not going to be the final package, because the Senate is going to probably trim it down quite a bit. And we don't even know if we're going to see it before there is a Memorial Day break for the senators. So it hasn't come over, and we don't have a bill yet. So we'll just be using that bill to do that. So that's going to be, that's going to take some time to go through all that and for them to negotiate between the two. But they're going to vote on it today, and it will, and it there is some infrastructure there. Everyone's trying to put in all of their pieces about it. There's childcare, there's everything in it. So and that's the biggest thing going on in Washington, D.C. The only other thing I want to say, I think, and if anybody has questions, is that I was on a call on Tuesday with FEMA. SBA was on there. At that time, there was still $122 billion in the PPP program. Want to let people, I didn't know that myself. And I kept asking my office and other people. I hadn't heard anything about it after it had been voted on. So there's still money there, so people could still access that. And want people to access that if they haven't gotten it.
And it looks like, Fritz, like you've got some questions. So let's go with
Sure.
Abisha first, and then to Joya.
And if I can't answer them, I'll get you an answer because So go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, Fritz. Good to see you. Thank you, Commissioner. So I saved Jody from this question. I'm passing it on to you, even though you both mentioned the PPP funding level. I am curious whether folks that were waiting in the queue for funding or to get their responses on PPP, have those all been worked through and now the funding that is available is in excess, or does that amount still include those that have yet to be worked through?
My understanding is that it includes everyone. And I don't know why, if you applied the first time, and if you didn't apply the first time, if you applied the first time, why you didn't get it, if it's just something with the bank, and then if you applied the second time without applying the first time, why haven't you gotten it also? So that's at the banking level, but it should be open to still everyone who's applied, as far as I know.
And this is money that has not been assigned to anybody, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
And then as a side note, the EIDL money has all been used up, and they were really focusing on, in 3.5, they were focusing on farmers because they had been not in the first one. That was an SBA rule that goes back to a certain period of time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Fritz. Joya, or Abisha, did you get everything? Okay. Joya, please.
Thank you so much. Hi, Fritz. Nice to meet you. Question. So with regard to this PPE program and the COVID-4 bill, are they extending the requirement for people to have paid back that, or brought all of their staff on by June 30th? Because we know there are businesses that are not going to be able to do that. So wondered where we were with that. And will there be any piece of that PPE program where chambers of commerce can apply for the money, or EIDL, or some other kind of financial assistance to us? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for asking that question. The first part of your question, particularly for me, because Senator Wyden on 2 days ago signed on to a bill to extend PPP loan deadline from 8 to 16 weeks. So again, and everyone's introducing their bills, and then they're going to try to get it into the COVID. There hasn't been any of that on the House side for the 501c6s, but the House bill does have the 501(c)(3) piece in it already that got voted on, that it's going to get voted on. So that's there, again, waiting for it to come over to the Senate before. And again, there's going to be lots of negotiation. They have one of the controversial things is a $2,000 stimulus check every month for the next 6 to 12 months, or something like that. I've read different articles that have quite different things, but I mean, Senator McConnell, has said in the past that that's a non-starter, that piece of it. So there's a lot of negotiating going on, but getting in a bill is very important. So that's in there.
Great. Thank you very much, Fritz. Thank you, Joya. Any other questions for Fritz today?
And Abisha, I'll double check. I'll double check to make sure on that today.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. I like anybody else. All right. With that, thank you very much, Fritz. And I'm going to go on to Denise Harvey, Tribal Council member from Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. Denise, what would you like to tell people out in the community and the tribal community, Yamhill County and beyond, and and perhaps we'll ask you some questions. And thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me today. And I just want to put out a thanks to Fritz and to thank Senator Wyden for his work that he's doing on some of the tribal issues. We really appreciate that. And the nation does. I'm on a national board for tribes, and it's been great that they haven't, I'm the only Oregonian on that board, and that Wyden is in a very strategic position to help with some of these issues. So I'm very appreciative of that. Right now, the tribe, we're getting ready to do a phase 1 for having some employees come back to the tribal government. We have continued to pay all of our employees at the tribal government and at the tribal casino continuously through this whole incident, and we are approved up until June 1st to continue doing that. We do have a follow-up meeting on the 18th with the board at the casino to talk about how we're going to reopen and when we're going to reopen, and we've been working through some of those plans. I know we don't have anything, a definite date planned on reopening, and we probably won't have anything anytime before June 1st. So I know a lot of the other casino operations are opening in the next week or so, and some have already. But we already decided that we weren't going to do anything like that before June 1st. So there's a lot of regulatory compliance that fits into our casino operations. So we have our gaming commission following all those regulatory compliance. And when it comes to, we'll probably close down some of the machines, but to reallocate those machines, there's a lot of work involved when you start moving machines around, and then later on have to put them back into place. So we'll probably just shut some of them down. I do know it is going to be difficult on that 6-foot requirement of distancing. And I know a lot of questions, and just listening to some of the comments on here, that's going to be difficult for a lot of folks. And I know, even the grocery stores aren't doing it. They have a plexiglass in front of the, so in some places wear shields and the face mask. So I think that's all a work in progress on how we all meet that compliance of that 6-foot distancing. But I do believe it's going to be difficult. And I really emphasize, for when we talked about our customers coming into our businesses, that they have a responsibility, and we all need to take that responsibility seriously and all be a part of it and cooperative with it. So what businesses do and what customers do is equally important. So we're doing our phase 1 opening for bringing employees.
This is so funny. I mean,
Hey,
well, I don't want to get her in trouble.
Hey, Fritz.
Fritz, you're on the line.
Thank you.
Anyhow.
Denise, what were you saying?
Oh, so I was going to say, we're doing a phase 1 of opening our employees back to our tribal government, but we are continuing to let the employees and the work that needs to be done to telecommute. So I know even the majority of us on council, we've been doing all these Zoom calls and work sessions and things all by phone and computer. So we're going to continue doing that and have the least amount of people on campus as we can through this process. Definitely keeping an eye, Polk County got denied. And not that we necessarily as a sovereign nation have to comply with any of that. We are looking closely at that and trying to monitor that and stay on top of that. So we've been very lucky. We haven't had any cases in the Grand Ronde community. And we just keep our fingers crossed that will continue. So we've been providing services and food and all the things that everybody might need on a, 24/7 basis. So, so far it's been good. And, we've, it's a day-to-day thing. So I think for all of us, it's been day-to-day. So if anybody has any questions for me, I can hopefully answer those.
Does anybody have questions for Councilor Harvey?
It's really good to see all of you, I'll tell you that. I'm used to seeing you guys at least once a month.
That's right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, I do know that, just to talk a little bit about I haven't heard anything about our bypass project, but there is some movement going on the 1822 project.
There is, Denise, this is Rick, there is some action being taken on the bypass. John Husted at ODOT now has gotten the go-ahead, and I think they've actually hired a consultant to go ahead and do I don't know where they found the money, but take some of the savings we had from phase 1 and phase 2 of property acquisition. They've actually moved it to doing the design of, since the EIS is done, the design and initial layout of the Dayton to Dundee end. So all 3 phases are actually getting work on it, and the phase 1A, the realignment of Wytoski Street and Wilsonville Road, that's going to be in work here about 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, and on the 1822, they were applying, ODOT for I think a $4 million grant. So we had to do a resolution and an MOU with them.
Right.
That, but I hadn't heard of ODOT applying for any grants for the bypass, which I know has been a long talked about discussion. So,
well, I can tell you, John Husted at ODOT is definitely in our corner. I know Dave Hageberg meets with him at least 2-3 times a week by video, and hopefully this week Dave will be putting out a full newsletter on what is being discussed.
Great.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Councilor Harvey, and thank you, Jody. Oop, she's gone. What I'd like to do now is go the round robin of mayors, especially because I just want to make sure that Mayor Sproul has time to do an update, because we missed her on the last one. If folks from the business community, business leaders who are here have questions for mayors, please ask. All right, and how about I'll begin with Mayor Wytoski from Dayton. Mayor, what would you like to tell people here and out in the community?
Oh, I was in the process of unmuting Marie. I'm sorry. Okay, a few things. Some of our restaurants, I know, are actually waiting a bit before they adjust operations. They want a little bit of time to kind of come up with some new plans, be really considerate, especially of their employees, making sure they can find ways to keep them safe even beyond some of the recommendations. They're also trying to acquire things like the masks that they're required to provide and some things like that. So I know that there's some that are trying to move a little quicker and some that are trying to move a little bit slower intentionally so that they can kind of wait and see. I know that there's a lot of at least relief that there are options to open, even for those who aren't doing so. I know I've had a couple business owners in like secondhand retail and employees of retailers who said that they're just glad that they can actually, start putting plans into place so that they can work towards reopening, even if they weren't quite ready. I do know that I'm sure it's getting back to a lot of you, but of course there's also some apprehension about reopening, especially about out of area guests and visitors and shoppers and diners. And that's a really big concern. I know, of course, we are less than an hour from the Portland area, from the Salem area, from several regions where their infection rates are much higher than they are in Yamhill County. And so a few of our business owners, especially restaurants, are really hesitant, not just in Dayton, but around the county. I've spoken with a few other people. Actually, hesitant's probably not the right word, just cautious. As they're a little bit worried that they'll have asymptomatic guests come in and possibly increase the infection rates in our area from those folks just really wanting to get out, like so many of us have been feeling for this in really the whole duration. So I do want to express that those, those cautions, those concerns are out there. I wanted to provide a little bit of clarification on parks and facilities, and maybe if other folks have comments on this too. In entering phase one, I know immediately in my community, we were asked, okay, when are you going to open the restrooms? When can we use the playgrounds? When can we use the public facilities? And, our answer is not yet. We're not opening playgrounds, of course, that's still under governor's guidance. OHA, of course, also has additional guidance about restrooms and other public facilities. And so we are waiting on those. And I do want to let my community know that we know that they're really desired facilities. We know that they're really necessary for, pursuit of outdoor recreation, especially families with young children who've been cooped up. I have 3 young children. They're all kind of getting at each other. We have the benefit of access to, a family farm that if nothing else, I can just go let them run wild for a bit. Not everybody has that access. And I know we want places for our kids to be able to run and play. And we'll get those open as soon as it's really safe to do so, but we really can't do so before then. And the other thing that I kind of wanted to discuss a little bit, and I'm trying to look to see if there's somebody online who might be able to provide a little bit of help, is in this shift of reopening the unemployment. There's people who are not prepared to return to work, either because they care for or live with a vulnerable person, or another health concern. I know a big part of that, of course, is still the childcare and school closures, and we have lots of people who need to stay home to care for their young children. And I know a lot of employers, of course, are in a tough situation where they're calling their employees back to work, and they need to do so in order to qualify for forgiveness for the PPP. And some of those employees are saying, I just can't. I have to be home taking care of my kids, or I'm taking care of my parents or grandparents or in-laws. And I don't know if there's much clarification on that, but I am really concerned about the people who are maybe going to be left without a job or unemployment for refusal to return to work based on these health concerns.
Yeah, anybody have thoughts or guidance for the mayor on this?
If I could contribute, thank you, Mayor Wytoski, for continuing to pursue information on this. We did get an email. I know Jody just jumped off, but we did get an email again from Jody this morning that have the unemployment guidelines that we've been watching from the state for several weeks, right? They were initially issued, and in it does clearly define that if you don't have access to childcare because of the pandemic, if you don't have access, if you need to care for somebody who's vulnerable, or if you are yourself vulnerable, they are still protected conditions even as we continue to reopen and we start to restore our workforce. Does that help?
Yeah, great, thank you. And I did actually get some clarification from Jody that I was able to provide for a couple of very specific constituents in some nuanced situations. But I just wanted to also still repeat that for ongoing concern. I don't know that all of those nuances are really addressed, even in the guidance. If there's not, it seems to me, it reads like if there's not a very immediate threat, that there's still not a lot of reason to not return to work. And I'm not sure that I think it's probably all we can do, but it doesn't feel good to tell people you have to return to a risky environment or lose your job. And also, if you choose to leave your job, you may not get unemployment. I think that's rough. I do want to actually provide one clarification that I didn't earlier, and that is because I have mentioned it on the vast majority of these calls. But my family's business finally did get their PPP. We actually got it before last week. But it was the same day that we had also made a deposit of checks, and so we didn't notice it. And I hadn't checked my grandma's account, but we did get it, which is a huge relief. And I've been continuing to kind of harp on that point, so I did want to offer that for all of you. Anyway, thank you for that additional information, Shannon.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Sproul, what would you like to tell people in your community and here on this call as well? And welcome back.
Thank you. I just have 3 or 4 things that I want to say. The city has been actually handling this pandemic really well, and the citizens also. They've been really supporting our businesses, and our water credit for business for takeout
purchases has gone really well. It's been a big success, and that looks like that's going to go on for probably another month, 2 months and a half at least. So I want to thank the citizens for getting together and doing that. I know the business owners, the three major business owners that have been taking advantage of this have really loved it. As far as parks goes, we have 6 parks in the city, 3 of them which are closed. Joel Perkins, Community Pride, and Plantation Park are closed. However, Community Park in where the community center is at, Terry Park, and also what's the third? And Veterans Park are open because there's no playgrounds in those areas to cause any problems. So the citizens can enjoy those still until the rest of them get opened up. We passed the budget last week. Wednesday night we had a budget meeting. It was quite an interesting meeting. It was the first time I had to do an electronic meeting, and man, I tell you one thing, they're interesting, really interesting. But it went very smooth and very good. So our budget is done. And then that's one thing I'd like to say is the city staff and the public works have done a wonderful job through this time, keeping everything up and going, and the parks clean and stuff like that. I've been really proud of the staff and the public works, so I'd like to just give them a shout out. We had to cancel most of the events in the next couple of weeks and months, the big July parade and stuff like that. But I want the citizens to know that the staff and the council is working on things to replace it this year so that we don't go without anything. And then next year we'll be back up and running. But I'm really proud of all of our citizens. Everybody's done a nice job. They've supported the food bank, the school systems, and the lunches for the breakfast and lunches for the kids have been great. One of the stops is in a park that I manage and own, and it was nice to see the students, walk up and get their food and stuff like that. So that was really a nice thing to watch. But that's about all I have to say.
Great, thank you very much, Mayor. Does anybody have questions for the mayor? All right, thank you so much for joining us. And I just wanted to note that Abisha may need to leave a little bit early, so I'm going to insert her talking points, as it were, after Mayor's. So Mayor Cooley, what would you like to tell people in Sheridan and here in the call?
Well, I think it's great that we're finally progressing towards some normalization, whatever that may look like in the future. As far as activities for youth, I do have some sad news. I'm also very involved with Scouts BSA, and I was just on a webinar with them before this one, and they have canceled all summer camp activities. So that affects about 10,000 youth in our area. So that's pretty sad. I'm sad that that had to happen, but they just could not figure out a way to make that work and keep everybody safe. So I'm glad that they came to that realization and we're not going to be endangering anybody, but still sad that those are opportunities that our youth aren't going to have this summer.
Yeah,
so other than that, we're holding up pretty good down here. So we're starting to get a little blowback about the parks. With the phase 1, people don't understand that some things that phase 1 does not cover. So, and the parks is one of them, unfortunately. So we're starting to see a little blowback about that, but we're doing okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And I bet that one of my fellow commissioners can update folks on county parks when we get there. Or maybe the mayor can't, Mayor Wytoski can, because she's probably been following it as closely as we have.
I know, I almost feel like I just want to make those announcements all day long because my residents have been so concerned about river access and using the landing park. But I'll wait and let the commissioners make the big reveal.
It's very kind of you. Okay, we will go into Mayor Cape. I think that's all the mayors on the call. Yes, Mayor Cape, what would you like to tell people in addition to water bills?
Yes, still, it's interesting that with the discussions of now that the state's getting the CARES Act funding, you know, and LOC and AOC, which represents the cities and counties at the state level with their efforts, you know, that they were discussing that, and that is one of the components that they are pushing for is to allow utility billing to be one of the uses of those funds. So I'm glad to see and hear that that is still moving forward, although we haven't exactly seen the dollars come yet. So I'm watching that closely. Since we're kind of talking about parks, you know, yeah, Amity's park is closed and is going to continue. So not just necessarily because of the virus and the restrictions from that, but because I believe it's next week we are going to start construction on repairs to our facility. So it didn't make sense to even discuss opening it since we'd have to close it anyways for construction. So that's going to just stay that way. I think through the majority of July. So we'll see how that unfolds as we get there. One other kind of side note, you know, talking about schools and budgets and whatnot, I can share while there's no definite plan of what's going to happen moving forward through this summer and into the start of next school year. I can say that Salem Kaiser schools are talking about furlough days for staff. I believe that's through the end of this fiscal year to save some money to reduce the impacts on next school year. And so, you know, nothing's been approved or finalized, but you know, there's all kinds of those discussions, and that's going to continue as we move forward. I know on my end, working in transportation, we right before all this happened, we had just passed through the school board $60 million worth of construction and bus purchases, which is a big need to meet the federal EPA emission guidelines. All school buses have to do that, and the vast majority of that's on hold until we see, you know, the effects of the budget, and we won't know that for quite some time. So, but just some things of thought and to think of. And my counterparts in Salem Kaiser School District, they're kind of jealous of us since we are open for phase 1 and they are not. So I share that as much as I can.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And I just want to remind folks that we, you know, we need to all be vigilant as community members and also as leaders in the community while we're in phase 1, to make sure that our public health staff and our hospitals don't get overwhelmed, especially by visitors, as Mayor Wytoski alluded to, visitors from outside of the area. So while I am, as I said earlier, or I said yesterday, I'm thrilled and I'm terrified. All right, thank you very much, Mayor.
And a lot of times you can get the park atmosphere at your house. I gotta say, this morning while I've been working at my desk in my living room, there's these 2 robins, and they've been flying back and forth from my house, directly like dive bombing over the top of my head to go get grass and twigs to build their nest in this bush right next to our living room. So you can still get the park event right in your house, right in your living room.
Absolutely, Mayor, absolutely. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. What I'd like to do is go to Abisha for her updates for everybody here and in the community before we move on to commissioners. Thank you, Abisha.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for letting me jump in real quick, just in case my time is cut short. I had a few updates that I thought folks on the call would be interested in. So first of all, the Yamhill County Immediate Relief Grant Program has closed. It's been closed now for a while, and I was informed by county staff that recipients of those awards should have checks in hand by the 28th. So for those who are listening, if they are recipients of those grant programs and have not received a check by the 28th, to please reach out to Carrie Martin at the county, who will do the follow-up. And my understanding is in that that date range, she also built in the USPS system, right? So the delivery system. I also wanted to share with folks that the SEDCOR manufacturer PPE exchange should be open this afternoon on our website, on SEDCOR's website. It only took us 3 days longer than we expected, which was pretty good news considering the fact that we did have some technical issues with our website and getting that system built. It is still fairly skeletal, and we will be following up with some of our economic development partners to make sure that we are building in all of the businesses in our region that should be included in that. I also still want to remind folks that, and I think maybe Jody mentioned this as well, we're all on so many calls together, I can't remember what was said and what hasn't been yet, but we are talking about whether there are some regional buying program opportunities to support our businesses who have smaller purchase volumes. They might want to partner together and get a larger purchase. Some of our city partners are talking about doing that as a way to support the purchase of large volumes of disposable masks, for example, to hand out to for the businesses to be able to hand out to folks who are showing up as customers who might not have masks. So there's a lot of conversations around that, and I think something for us to be continuing to talk about. I have been working this last 24 hours with Marion County on a joint proposal for a Business Oregon grant fund. So the first round of the $2.5 million that they've opened up for a match, this is a one-to-one match program, which probably will not look like a one-to-one match program because there's not enough funds to cover the state for that sort of an impact. This is one of the reasons why we have decided, Yamhill County Board of Commissioners gave me the thumbs up to write for a joint proposal with Marion County. We have a call at 3 o'clock to solidify that approach, and may potentially be including Polk County as well, but that is to be determined on our 3 o'clock call. The idea is that we would be partnering with the Council of Governments and Willamette Workforce Partnership for administration of those grants. It would be issued as grants to our business partners for our reopening efforts. More information to come on that, especially, of course, if we are selected. But I wanted to let folks know that this effort to identify additional sources for the region is well underway. We feel that writing for this first round makes sense based on the county's existing position with having just run a program. And we also feel that round 2 may offer more competition. And so therefore we're going for it, if you will, for this round. I also wanted to say there's a few different types of funding that we are keeping our eyes on right now. So the state has told us that they are going to be opening a few different rounds of funding. And one of those is CDBG grant funds, type grant funds. These are funds that a jurisdiction or municipality would have to support a business in writing for, but they can be pretty sizable funds for infrastructure development. Some of these funds, it looks like, will be focused on businesses who are looking to retool or expand and or hire staff for to increase or create an ability for them to develop PPE or produce PPE. So some of that is specific to the PPE conversation still, which is nice to see because there has been a lack of funding available specifically for that. And we could certainly use that in our area. The other funding that we're keeping an eye on is EDA funding. And we had one of our state partners compared what they believe this EDA funding to look like to the type of impact that was had during the Northwest timber industry crash and recovery period. So we are keeping an eye on these funding sources as an opportunity for some really significant infrastructure sort of investment. And I will leave it there. Thank you.
Great. Questions for Abisha?
I have a question on the grant program or pursuing those that funding at the county level. We understand that this is a fairly competitive writing process, correct? And we do know of cities within our county who have already applied for those grant fundings. Does that change our approach as a county at all?
So I have spoken to a few of the cities in the county who shared with me that they will not be applying for these Business Oregon grant funds. If there are any cities that are looking to apply, please do let me know. Reach out to me, and we are looking to include language that is in coordination with any funding that might come directly to a city. The county has no intent, and please, commissioners who are on the line, jump in if I'm misrepresenting this, but is not looking to compete with the individual cities, but is looking for a complementary program that increases the amount of funding available, leverages what the county has already committed, and has the ability to reach all parts of the county. So please let me know if there's an opportunity to collaborate.
Thank you.
And I might add to that Abisha and I were both on a call yesterday together where the interim director of Business Oregon encouraged counties to apply essentially in conjunction with and on behalf of cities in the county, so as to have a single application that disperses money more broadly. Was that an accurate?
Yes, they said that they would love to see those sort of submissions, and especially regional ones. And I think it's because this will be really competitive and it's moving very quickly. Applications have to be submitted. We were originally told by end of day on Sunday. Now it looks like we have until Monday to get them submitted. But there's obviously a lot of work to do in order to get those in time.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Shannon, did that help? Okay, great. Any other questions for Abisha? All right. Thank you very much, Abisha, for moving very quickly and for reaching out to us with your proposals. The other commissioners I know really appreciate it too, but I don't need to speak for them because I want to have them talk perhaps about parks or about other things. Commissioner Sterrett, if you're still with us, what would you like to tell people today? Oh my goodness, Shannon Buckmaster has. Okay.
Before we move on, I do have one question actually about the PP exchange that you're releasing information on this afternoon, Abisha. We're getting spoiled because your team has gotten so adept at I can't speak today, preparing professional marketing and media packages. Will it come with a media kit when you release it this afternoon? Thank you. And please forgive me, Commissioner Sterrett.
Great question. Thank you, Shannon. I anticipate that we're putting together a media kit. I know that we are. Whether that comes out today, I could not tell you, but I know it will be coming, and we'll make sure that you all get copied on that.
Thank you, Abisha.
Thank you for the follow-up. Commissioner Sterrett.
Thank you, Commissioner. Real quick, the parks are open and the fair is closed, and we're trying to figure out what that travel distance is. On a call, Leah this morning talked about some of the concerns that people are having. In other words, the metro counties, the phase 1 counties, or what they're calling the baseline counties. And the quotes are, and I wrote these down, you can probably go a little bit further. Another quote is pretty close, but just so you feel like you're not stuck. So I don't know what that means, other than they're going to try to have some updates and some clarifications on the Travel Oregon website, a link this afternoon, because folks who have VRBOs in our county are a little bit concerned about being able to have folks stay within those guidelines for the non-essential travel and still be able to operate their businesses. Also, a couple of things. There were questions about masks and about law enforcement and whether or not business owners, how far could they press the issue if a customer chose not to. That was on the call. And information on masks, as we heard earlier, is coming out this afternoon. And one question about the smaller events, people contacting me about weddings that had to be canceled. They were asked if they could be held separately in different areas of a venue, and the answer was if you can have them in separate buildings, you could, but you couldn't have separate. For instance, we couldn't have a fair with 25 people in all the different areas. So unless you're in a separate building, the restrictions on gathering size will remain. And real quick, fraternal clubs like the American Legion, since they're licensed as a social club, they can't open. If they were licensed as restaurants, they could. So that was the update there.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. You got a lot of that information that I heard too. Thank you for the update. Do we have questions for Commissioner Sterrett? Okay, great. And I just thank you, Commissioner Starrett. I just forwarded to everybody Jody Christensen's forward of the new mask guidance. So it's out. I haven't looked at it though because there's too much to do. All right, great. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Olson, what would you on the call and in the community?
Well, thank you, Casey, and Commissioner Starrett, and everybody that's still on the call. Again, I'd like to I think you both pointed out the good job that Jared Larson, our Parks Director, did in opening up all of our parks. There's two exceptions, and that's Stuart Grenfell on Highway 18 by Red Prairie Road. That one is still closed. And then, of course, Charles Metzger, which is really a beautiful park. It's always been closed to the public and is a reservation-only park, and that's up on the end of Baker Creek. But other than that, they're all open. We are maintaining some areas of the park that could be like our big picnic shelters and everything that would cause mass gatherings. Some of those will be closed down, so they can't get together in those shelters and without maintaining, excuse me, the 6 feet. But that's going well. I think the one thing I'd like to talk about for a minute is yesterday, as the liaison to WICOM, which is the 911 Center, Yamhill Community Communications Agency. We had our board meeting yesterday and our budget meeting yesterday, and as a member of the executive board, we found out that the county now, or the WICOM, could measure some different statistics based on call type, call location, cause of the call, what it is that they have the software to do now, which is amazing. And Patty Sowers, who's the director of WICOM, brought up that, and I asked her to share these with our HHS staff, and it was kind of what I thought it would be. Since the beginning of the COVID virus, the number of potential suicide calls that have been responded to, all of last year there was 3. This is 11 just since the COVID-19. So we are seeing a higher rate of people that are either contemplating taking their own life or suicidal, which was scary. And then there's other things that they can tell now is if they're remember what communities are experiencing them, what effect it has on law enforcement, what effect it has on health and human services. And our WICOM Center has been able to operate fully during this COVID, but since the COVID, they've seen about a 3,000 call decrease in the number of calls they're getting, but the calls they're getting, they've seen an increase in mental health calls and suicidal calls and burglary calls, which makes pretty good sense with the burglary calls, because with the burglary calls, being that everybody is staying home and nobody is actually at their businesses, most of them are commercial burglaries or commercial breaking and entering, because there's nobody there to keep them from breaking and entering. So that's an issue. This morning I was on a call for with the Western Governors Association, which was about 60 people on the call, and either the governors or the governor's representatives from about 13 different states were involved, and went over an interesting statistic, and this is out of Colorado, and this is on the Main Street Revitalization Program, that on an average, they've estimated in Colorado that 30% of their businesses will not reopen. And that's scary to me, because if you look at downtown McMinnville and Main Street, that 30% is a high number, but that means that if that was statistics held true in downtown McMinnville, we would have 16 open storefronts. And that's significant, a part of our inventory of commercial space, but we'd have 16 companies down there, businesses, whether they're restaurants or whether they're mercantiles, that will never open up, which is a real concern of mine. And I think, Casey, that's about it. And Casey, don't worry about you not being the liaison to SEDCOR. My feeling about it is all the committee, even though I'm the liaison, all the commissioners should be talking to all the department heads. So it doesn't bother me at all. I've been going behind your back at Public Works too. No, but that's all I have, Casey.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner. Do we have questions for Commissioner Olson? All right, great, thank you. I was going to go next to Miriam Vargas Corona from Unidos Bridging Communities to tell her community as well as people here on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to give some updates about new things that are exciting and things that we're working on. So I had been here before sharing about the Oregon Workers Relief Fund. So this is a statewide fund that will provide emergency financial assistance for Oregonian immigrants that are not eligible for unemployment benefits and will not receive the stimulus check. So the state legislature's emergency board has allocated $10 million for this fund. And I believe the Oregon Food Bank has contributed $300,000. In order to serve the 74,000 Oregonians that we believe need this help, we would need a total of 124 million. So it's a good start. Unidos has been working with the state coalition to continue to do advocacy with elected officials and community leaders to support this fund so that we can fundraise more of that needed amount. And so starting next week, we believe that community members will be able to apply for this funding. Unidos has applied to be one of the community-based organizations that will essentially act as a resource navigator to help community members apply for this much needed funding. We have also applied for grants through private foundations, and we are excited to be providing our own emergency relief fund. It's not a lot of money, but we are estimating that we can help about 50 families with $200 each for things like rent, utilities, or groceries. So we are working on that application right now to make sure that we are serving folks that are most at need. Again, people who are not eligible for unemployment benefits and will not receive the stimulus check. So once that is ready, we are going to be sharing that information so that others can help us get the word out to those who need it most. As you all know, statewide, the Latinx population has been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. We account for 30% of the confirmed cases, which is disproportionate to the percentage of Latino Oregonians. And so Unidos has been working hard to provide bilingual and culturally specific information, community education about COVID-19 and how to protect yourself. But we know that's not enough. And so we are also starting a cloth face mask drive. So anybody who would be willing to make these cloth face masks, they're welcome to contact us to arrange pickup of those. Or they can drop those off at our office, and we are going to be reaching out to the big agricultural employers and asking if they would allow us to provide these masks for their employees. We also have a staff person that can help people over the phone to enroll in the Oregon Health Plan. So right now it's critical that everybody has healthcare coverage. And so we want to make sure that we're also helping in that aspect. So those are the updates I have. And I want to make sure that we thank the McMinnville Cooperative Ministries. They provided $1,500 worth of gift cards for our community members that we know need this help. And so those have been distributed and they were so appreciated. So thank you, McMinnville Co-op.
Great, thank you very much, Miriam. Does anybody have questions for Miriam? Thank you very much for the update, and thank you for speaking to the community.
I actually have a question for her. This is Denise Harvey.
Great.
How do we get that information that you just talked about? Because it's just funny, I got a call about exactly what she was talking about. families that aren't eligible for benefits and don't have any resources that are illegal immigrants. So how do we get that information?
So for folks that are undocumented immigrants, the Oregon Worker Relief Fund will have the application on their website, I believe next week, and that's workerrelief.org. And they can go on there and apply, or if they need help, we can also assist people with that, and they can call us at 971-261-0817, and we can help get them connected to that. Once we have our own fund application available, we're going to put it on our Facebook page and our website. So it's Unidos Bridging Community on Facebook, and unidosyamhillcounty.org is our website.
Great, and I think you have a question. Oh, Denise Harvey, Councilor Harvey, was that good enough?
That was perfect. Thank you. That's all
Wonderful.
I need.
Thank you. Joya, you have a comment or question?
Hey, Miriam, I know a lot of people in town that are making masks that are willing to donate them. So shall I give them this number, 971-261-0817 to call you? I will do that.
Yes, thank you.
You bet.
Great, thank you very much for making that connection. I would love to move on to Scott Cooper from McMinnville Economic Development Partnership, and then Joya will be our final. I know, Scott, what would you like to tell people both in the community and here on the call today? And thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. This is my first time, and it's my first time seeing some of these faces. I look forward to meeting you all in person, hopefully much sooner than later. Just one thing I'll share quick, as MEDP serves the traded sector and manufacturers in McMinnville and slightly outside of McMinnville. We surveyed over 90 manufacturers and traded sector companies. Well, we sent survey requests out. We received about a 30% completion rate to this point, and I'd like to close that out. It's been open for about a week and a half. I'd like to close that out today, and probably will. I may hold on till Monday if some are out there, but the point of that being is to find out impacts, certainly, to give us a heads up on issues and problems. And those early conversations helped make us aware of what was going on with Megit. And we were able to put a rapid response team together quick for their employees that were being affected, to help them with unemployment information, healthcare information, new jobs information. So, these things are important for us to get out in front of, and these type of surveys help do that. So I will be putting together some information on the findings of this survey, and I'll certainly be happy to share that with the Board of Commissioners, and I'll maybe work with you to disseminate some of that information if you would like. I'd be happy to do that. So thank you for all of your work, and I certainly appreciate the efforts that's going on in the county here. So I'm humbled, and it's great to be a part of it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Questions for Scott? Whoa, that's a really spooky sound somebody has. Okay, thank you very much, Scott, for joining us today. Joya, what would you like to tell businesses and others in the community?
Okay, you may have heard that the SBA has money for the PPE program. So if you are a business, I highly recommend you reach out for that. We continue to advocate to the federal legislators to change the due date for businesses that received PPP money. I said PPE, didn't I? I meant PPP. You know what I meant. So we continue to advocate for that because we understand that businesses are going to be struggling to bring all of their staff back before the end of June. Travel Oregon has a grant program for tourism businesses that we just heard about. I don't know if Jody mentioned that, but very exciting. I just want to say thank you to the commissioners and thank you to the state for opening up Yamhill County. Our businesses are very happy to be open. Some are, just moving forward with opening. Others are taking a more cautious approach, just like Mayor Wytoski had mentioned. and they'll continue to evaluate how they're doing. But one of our businesses told us today they've got 50 reservations for their restaurant over the weekend. So that's exciting. We did notify our community that we have canceled Turkey Rama. I know that is heartbreaking for a lot of us. We were so excited about this year because it would have been our 60th. However, we're working on another plan to really help replace it for this year, in the sense of helping our businesses, because it's all about commerce, helping our businesses and getting our community to go to those businesses. So more on that when we have a formulated plan. And MDA is working on a downtown program. I think we've talked about that on, how to open that up. And they are working with us on this Turkey Rama replacement. Lemonade Day is August 15th. We are moving forward with it because kids should learn about entrepreneurship. And we're going to have a Lemonade Day fair, I think, on July 11th. That's the plan. We're still working out those details, and we're still doing weekly greeters online with Zoom. So no in-person meetings yet. And that's my update. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. For some reason, I have made the whole screen tiny. Okay. Woo! I was the host and I minimized everything, but great. Thank you very much, Joya, for that update. And it's similar, I think, to Mayor Sproul's comments about Lafayette and making sure that the community actually has an event of some kind, even if it just needs to be made up later. So yes, thank you. Typically at this point, I would just sign us off, but I received a really amazing email from a number of doctors in Newburgh that I wanted to read, and I'll do it. It's short, but I wanted to do it kind of as this is what the community is thinking about as we reopen. And it says, "Dear County Commissioners, as a primary care provider working in Newburgh, I have witnessed the impact of coronavirus in our community. There is no doubt in my mind that the majority of people in Yamhill County took this threat very seriously. People cared for themselves and each other. We made incredible personal and financial sacrifices to accomplish this. Over the months, we saw how the virus came to Oregon and then plateaued relatively quickly because of the action we took in the medical and public health community, the action of our local community and our elected leaders. The relatively low numbers in Yamhill County reflect the success and justifies the action and sacrifices from us all. Today, we reopen the economy in Yamhill County. And my goal in writing to you is to hopefully inspire you to continue providing consistent positive messaging about our success so far and the need to stay the course in protecting ourselves and each other. Because of the relatively low number of cases in the county, one may conclude that the threat was overblown and that we needlessly harmed our community and economy. This is a dangerous message because it may lead to people being cavalier or underestimating the continued risk. I understand that some people view the virus as a trade-off between safety and individual freedom. But what I have witnessed from our community does not conform to this either-or philosophy. What I witnessed instead was a majority of individuals, businesses, and the community freely making the choice to go above and beyond to keep everyone safe. To reflect on our success, to build on the pride and the confidence that we as residents of Yamhill County have in tackling this common threat is a winning strategy. Thank you, Martin Peters, Doctor of Osteopathy." And I apologize, he actually had a couple other people sign that, but I opened the wrong copy. So I appreciate those thoughts from our medical community. They are on the front lines of this, like many others, and I just want to thank all of them. So thank you for joining us for another version of the Yamhill Leaders Roundtable, and I will see you on Tuesday. Thank you so much, everybody.
Hi, Case.